Ronnie Schulz, Chester Stix. They've been ringing the news since 1989 when their coverage of the fall of the Berlin Wall won a Pulitzer Prize, effectively launching their side-by-side careers as news anchor and on-location reporter. Now, in 2012, 23 years later, in the wake of the scandal caused by their report on the Crategate scandal, with backlash from conservatives, they have decided to retire. We now look at the highlights of their career in the hopes they will see the error of their ways and return once more to the fine world of broadcasting. Despite the backlash caused by this broadcast, Ronnie Schulz and Chester Stix's final report together was a piece of broadcasting gold. Let's see how their broadcasting style has evolved throughout the years, while managing to retain the integrity that they brought to you in 1989. We bring you the Crategate scandal.
Mitt Romney has been long known for his inability to connect on a personal level to any sector of the American public. The one exception to this has perhaps been dog owners. Romney has, as such, played heavily upon his family's longtime affection for dogs, and the dog-owning American public has responded favorably. What we have to tell you today, then, may come as a shock, and perhaps may even change your opinion of Romney. It's hard to believe unless you've seen it, so we're going to go ahead and show you the damning picture. 30 years ago, Romney took a road trip from Boston to Ontario, Canada, a 20-hour drive, with his supposedly dog-loving family. Not being one to leave a dog behind, Romney took the next logical step by bringing his dog along, and then, leaving logic behind, tied his dog's crate to the roof of his car for the duration of the trip. His dog was obviously terrified, yet Romney took no steps to calm the dog or fix the situation. We go now to Ronnie Schulz with the reenactment of the scene for our viewers' benefit.
Thanks, Chester. What we see here is a simulation of the car ride. As you can see, the car isn't even moving, and yet the dog is still pointing at you. 30 minutes into a drive, the dog would start hyperventilating. 1 hour in, and he would start shaking uncontrollably. 2 hours into the drive, and he would lose all control, panicking wildly in his fear and mad desire to escape. Romney's dog, Seamus, was in a position where he could not control his destiny. He was tied to the roof of the car, subject to the twists and turns of the road. Romney has tried again and again to connect to you, the American voters, and his dog ownership has been one point where he feels he has made some inroads. Please, for the sake of dogs everywhere, I urge you to take heed of the situation. Romney's inhumane treatment of his dog is only a preview of what would be to come if he were elected. Back to you, Chester.
Thanks, Ronnie. I know I wouldn't vote for someone who would treat a dog so poorly. If that's how he treats a dog, who knows how he would treat actual people were he in office. This is Chester Stix signing off and wishing you and your dogs a pleasant evening.
Such amazing reporting, and at what a cost. We now look at their coverage of the 2000 presidential election recount, perhaps their finest piece of reporting since the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Wow, what a day yesterday, November 7th was. It is now midnight, and the election is still too close to call.
I'm shaking with excitement, Chester. It looks as if the election might come down to Florida.
That's right, Ronnie. Hard to believe that 4 hours ago, networks were predicting that Gore would carry Florida's 25 electoral votes.
That just goes to prove that you can never base an election result on exit polls. Florida was retracted from Gore around 10, and now we'll just have to wait and see for the tally. It is now 12:09, and Washington has been called for Gore. This means that Bush leads Gore by only 5 electoral votes. Right now, the count is 246 to 241.
With only 51 electoral votes yet to be determined, it looks like the vote is going to come down to Florida. It is now 2:17 Eastern Standard Time, and Florida has been called for Bush. This means that Bush will be the new president of the United States.
What a long night it's been, and what a close election this shaped up to be. Just think, if Florida had gone to Gore, this would have been an entirely different broadcast.
Breaking news! 2 minutes ago, Gore called Bush to concede the election. It is now 2:32, and we can finally say without a doubt, that George W. Bush is our next president. At last. This is Chester Stix signing off and wishing you a pleasant evening. I'd like to take a moment to apologize for our pajamas, but we fell asleep on the studio floor before waking up just in time to hear the news we're about to bring you.
It's 3:30 a.m., and Gore has just retracted his concession. It appears that Florida is still up in the air. It is still too close to call. Never in all my years,
Nor in all my years.
have I seen something quite as insane as this.
Good morning, folks, and thank you for staying with us last night. And what a long night it was. It is November 8th, and still no winner has been called for the 2000 presidential election. It is coming down to Florida. It appears that Bush leads Gore by only 1,784 votes. There appear to be many voting irregularities. We go now to Ronnie Schulz, reporting on some of these oddities.
Thanks, Chester. I'm here in Palm Beach County, an area where the population has a high percentage of elderly voters. We speak now with Mrs. Weinstein. Mrs. Weinstein, what can you tell us about voting?
Well, it was very confusing. I don't like these newfangled punch card ballots. They were very confusing, and I had a hard time reading the small print. Even now I can't be sure I punched the right hole.
Wow, how do you think that could have happened?
I intended to vote for Gore, of course, but I believe I might have voted for Pat Buchanan because of the formatting of the card.
Shocking. Do you think you are alone in this?
Well, I've talked with my bridge club, and everyone faced similar challenges. A high percentage of voters in the area apparently voted for Buchanan, but I find that hard to believe, based on his history of anti-Semitic remarks, combined with a high percentage of Jewish voters in the area. It just doesn't seem right to me. It doesn't add up.
How sad, yet how true and how universal. Election results are still on the line. I know no matter what happens, the result will be shocking. Thank you for your time, Mrs. Weinstein. Back to you, Chester.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ronnie. I have recently received reports that a full machine recount of votes has been issued in Florida because the margin of victory is smaller than 0.5%. And under the Florida election code, this mandates a full machine recount. Florida's governor, Jeb Bush, George Bush's brother, has officially recused himself from the process of the recount, and it has been taken over by Secretary of State Katherine Harris. This doesn't decrease the bias by much, however, as she was co-chair of Bush's election efforts in Florida. Stay tuned for more updates. It is November 9th, and I'm here bringing you the update on the presidential election. This has been one of the closest elections I've ever seen. Gore has apparently won the popular vote with 48,976,148 votes to Bush's 48,783,510 votes, a margin of only 19,638 votes. But as we know, popular vote does not determine the winner in our country. In fact, it is the electoral vote that determines the winner. As it stands now, with Florida still too close to call, Gore leads Bush with 260 electoral votes to Bush's 246. Florida will determine the winner. Whoever takes the state takes the election.
It is 5 p.m. I'm bringing you a special report to announce that Katherine Harris, Florida's Secretary of State, has announced that all recounts must be turned in by Tuesday, November 14th. Gore is arguing that that isn't enough time to recount all of the ballots properly.
There was one day of relative calm in the recount process, with no major events happening. Today, the Bush camp has asked for a federal injunction to stop hand recounts of ballots.
Today, November 12th, Palm Beach County has announced that it will manually recount all ballots countywide.
Katherine Harris has just announced that she will not extend the 5 p.m. deadline for recounting votes. Volusia County, another which has begun manual recounting, refused to complete manual recounting, feeling that it cannot make it in time for the deadline. Bush's request for an injunction was today denied by U.S. District Judge Donald Middlebrooks. Bringing you the news from today, November 21st, it's Chester Stix and Ronnie Schulz. We're sorry to have been able to keep up with the constant updates on the election. We've been suffering from panic attacks due to the pressure of so many updates.
Now we're back and bringing you this breaking news. Today, the Florida Supreme Court unanimously ruled that manual recounts may continue and the results must be counted in the election results. They, however, do have a set deadline for November 26th.
Breaking news! Katherine Harris has just declared Bush the winner of Florida.
Wow, Chester, I'm shocked. How could this have happened?
Well, Ronnie, Palm Beach County missed its 5 p.m. deadline, with 1,000 votes still to count, and Katherine Harris refused to extend it. There's still some controversy.
As well there should be. Stay tuned for more updates.
It's midnight, and the U.S. Supreme Court just overturned the Florida Supreme Court's call for a manual recount of votes.
Wow, without a manual recount being allowed, it would appear as if this long election is indeed over, and Bush is the winner.
Stay tuned.
It is official now, folks. Gore has just conceded the election.
Good evening. Just moments ago, I spoke with George W. Bush and congratulated him on becoming the 43rd President of the United States.
Gore is accepting Bush as the 43rd President of the United States.
We'd like to thank you for staying with us for so long. Tune in tomorrow for a special report following up on problems we saw with the election.
This is Chester Stix and Ronnie Schulz signing off and wishing you a pleasant evening.